Pictured here is a post box, or more correctly, a pillar box, which is defined as a freestanding post box, usually painted red. In the early 1950s, these humble little items would become a source of trouble between some in Scotland and the government in London. The late Queen, Queen Elizabeth, was deeply loved and honored by many in Scotland. She had strong ties to Scotland. Both her parents could trace their ancestors to the Stuart kings of Scotland. From childhood, the Queen spent quite a bit of time in Scotland. In fact, it was at her royal residence in Balmoral in Aberdeenshire that she passed away. Despite her popularity, there was one thing about the Queen that quickly became controversial to many Scots, and that was her royal cipher. According to the Postal Museum, a royal cipher is a way of combining a monarch's initials and title, either in a standalone fashion or intertwined like in a monogram. For example, the image pictured here is the royal cipher used by Queen Victoria, with an R for Regina, her royal title, and a V for Victoria. But why would Queen Elizabeth's cipher be a problem in Scotland? The reason is she chose the cipher pictured here, with an E and the Roman numeral 2 between an R, symbolizing that she was Queen Elizabeth II. The problem for many Scots is there has never been a Queen Elizabeth I of Scotland, as Queen Elizabeth Tudor was an English queen, while her cousin Mary and later Mary's son James ruled Scotland. When Elizabeth I of England died, James of Scotland was made King of England as well. He became known as James VI in Scotland and James I in England. When post boxes were placed in Scotland with the Queen's cipher bearing the Roman numeral 2 on them, there were many protests made. Initially, the protests were made by a series of letters being sent to various government officials. At one point, a court case was actually brought against the government, but the judges determined it was a matter of royal prerogative. A queen could adopt any title she wished, such as when her father, Albert Frederick Arthur George, or simply Prince Albert, had chosen to be known as King George VI when he became king. Protests continued, with post boxes bearing the unwanted cipher being painted over, covered in tar, or attacked with various weapons such as sledgehammers. Initially, the government under Prime Minister Winston Churchill was determined to not back down on the matter, but as further protests continued, they began to consider alternatives. Things grew more serious on February 12, 1953, when an explosive device was set off in a pillar box in Edinburgh, destroying the pillar box, but fortunately not harming anyone and not causing any damage to any mail, as it was found that the mailbox was empty at the time. It is said that all the locals feared using the box anyway, as it had been attacked and vandalized so many times previously that they did not think their mail would be delivered safely. Finally, in early 1954, it was decided that all post boxes and postal vans in Scotland would simply have the image of the Crown of Scotland on them. And so, to this day, the standard for the Royal Mail vans, post boxes, and pillar boxes in Scotland is simply the Scottish Crown. In 2018, to the shock of many, the post box with the E2R cipher was placed in the Scottish town of Dunoon. After an immediate but peaceful protest, the Royal Mail said that the box was erected by mistake and moved quickly to replace it. So there you have the story of what is sometimes, I'm hoping tongue in cheek, called the Pillar Box War, or others call it the Battle of the Cypher. For now, this is goodbye.